For this session, I wrote 57 words. For this session, I wrote 61 words. For this session, I wrote 178 words. Up or down is relative. Sometimes what I may perceive as a downfall may be a sanctification. The realistic thinking of logic versus the oneiric thinking of illogic, these are some of the things I'm thinking about. Problem solving can be difficult because of the assumptions we possess. Assumptions impede the occurrence of novelty or novel ideas, which require an environment of spontaneity or non-rigidness to surface. At the beginning stage of solving a problem, my initial work is in wading through my assumptions, because assumptions are the root cause of any problem. But clearing my assumptions with the same framework of thinking that I have carried for most of my life, even if I approach clearing from different angles, it can only amount to a dilution of my assumptions at best, and at worst, it is as if I'm cleaning with a dirty rag. A strong indicator that one carries the same framework of thinking, though the framework may be in dilution, is in having recurring problems or having thematically similar problems across one's life. In other words, if you are very familiar with a problem, it is very likely that structurally your framework of thinking is unchanged. I think we beat at our problems incessantly and frustratingly, often without resolve, because in modern culture, we've mostly been taught to solve our problems logically, including in our emotional suffering. However, the best solutions, the genius solutions, often exist outside the bounds of reason. They are outside the bounds of logic, divinely inspired, given in epiphanies or dreams, in inexplainable or bewildering convictions, hunches, or intuition. I had a dream several nights ago where I was in a crowded forum searching for a friend. In this dream, I had speedily walked through the entire massive conference center looking for my friend for what felt like hours before I came across this tucked away entrance to a restaurant bar. This restaurant bar was upstairs inside a hollowed out boat. It was a fine dining, fancy type establishment, and really the only nautical component was that it was inside a boat. And I climbed up the stairs, the narrow staircase, and came to one section of this restaurant that was away from the main activity. And at the far end of this section, I saw this little divoted area that caught my eye. I walked over to it and I saw that it was blocked off by velvet rope stanchions on both sides of this little divoted area. And I noticed that it was a server station with a register and some bar glasses. But on the other side of this station, I saw this alcove that peeked through, and I could see some people were in that alcove. From where I was standing, it looked like this was the only access point to that alcove, and I had in mind at first to secretly cross this area because nobody was there so that I could look for my friend. But then, out of nowhere in my dream, I suddenly had this moment of morality where I felt that it was wrong to cross through this way. So I ended up turning around and leaving the restaurant, and then I woke up. I was very distressed by this dream for a while without understanding why I was. Then, upon further reflection, it occurred to me that I was distressed because I had limited myself in my dreams of all places based upon reality's logic. This dream lesson made me think of reality as a construct of people's versions of logical thinking. Everyone has their own logic that they follow, their own individual code. And even if it's not logic according to strict philosophical definitions, the logic I speak of is of patterning, sequencing, ways of thinking about cause, effect, and consequences, habits, and attachments. This is the system that we tend to default to when pointed to think reasonably, sensibly, understandingly, i.e., logically. However, what we think of logic, what we even accept as logic philosophically, in my opinion, I think is still a form of assumption. I think proof and evidence are also assumptions, given that they are subject to interpretation. And personally, I am of the belief that mathematics is also a form of assumption, though it may be a more enduring one. But I am an alien to this earth, so make of that what you will. Anyways, generally, I think that what we think of as logic is a form of assumption, and that if we continue to use logic to try and solve our problems, we are inhibiting ourselves from accessing this unlimited domain of solutions that exist in the vast sphere of the potential abyss. And we severely limit ourselves to novel ideas. However, when we are so hardwired to use logic as our basis for thinking, it is very difficult to trip that wire and convince ourselves into actual belief and not its body double of persuasion that there is an alternative mode that is at least as equally valid as our logical thinking. We need to use logic, though, to unlogic us and ease our transition into illogical thinking, so that we can put some distance between our assumptions to give us a fair shot at changing our framework of thinking. Let's say I was hurt by a friend because my friend ignored me when I shared something I was excited about. I take some space from my friend because I know I'm hurt and I don't want to engage from a hurt place because I know I'll be irritable and maybe I'll say something that I'll regret. But this has happened to me before many times with my friend, and though I have tried to talk to my friend about it, let's say it's been a difficult behavior to change because for my friend this is habit. At this point in our friendship, let's say we've talked about this quite a few times, we've now thought about it, my friend thinks that I am accusing of inconsideration and selfishness, which makes my friend feel bad, and we're just fighting all the time in talking about it. I'm tired of fighting over this small thing, and after evaluating our friendship, I realize this is still a relationship I want to continue because it means a lot to me and my friend has many other redeeming and admirable qualities worthwhile. But this conflict between us still affects me. I decide to try and be more understanding of my friend when this happens, but the more I let slide, the more upset and pent up I am because I feel unmet in the friendship. So I do the only thing I know that can help me, which is to step away and take some space. But usually in this space, I notice that I am ruminating in my welled up hurt. And though eventually I am able to come out of this space civil, I notice that I am generally colder towards my friend and I have my guard up. This is an example of solutions that aren't effective solutions because they are based in an inherently unchanged framework of thinking. Logically, what this reflects is a conditioning that I attribute a cause and effect type sense of hurt when I share something exciting with my friend because My friend ignores me when I share. It does not fix the problem to gaslight oneself and try to persuade oneself that, oh, actually, I'm fine, I'm not hurt, it's not a big deal. It does not fix the problem to diminish one's hurt, saying there are bigger problems out there. It does not fix the problem to increase one's tolerance of pain through space and more understanding. What can actually work to solve the problem is when taking space, I use the logic versus illogic parallel to logic my way into illogic so that I can actually see my problem from a more removed perspective. I'll say to myself something like this. Logically, I am hurt because of my friend's negligent treatment of me. And then, right behind that, I'll say something like, illogically, my hurt has nothing to do with my friend. Or, illogically, my crying has nothing to do with my hurt. You'll recognize that all three statements are true, and this is the key to be aware of. You might go further in this exercise and say something like, logically, my friend is untrustworthy of my news. Then you might follow that with, illogically, my friend cares about me. By logic, you know both statements are true, and then if you simply accept illogical thinking as equally valid as logical thinking to navigate reality, as in dreams we are not bound to any systems, then you can choose the illogical pathways, repackage them as counterintuitive pathways if you like, and rewrite your framework of thinking in the illogical, the infinite, the intuitive. What we call counterintuitive these days really is the intuitive, in my opinion. I want to give a few more examples on the logic and illogic parallel. Logically, you might say, I'm giving the cold shoulder to my friend because I hate my friend. Following that, you might say, illogically, I'm giving the cold shoulder to my friend because I love my friend. Or you might say, illogically, I'm not even giving the cold shoulder to my friend. By logic, you can recognize that all three statements are true. And this is what allows you to level the seemingly impossible to the reasonable, making what seemed to us very far-fetched at first more attainable to our logic orientation. It is when we think an idea false that we cannot even grasp at it. For a declaration of falseness is a rejection of possibility. This method is not at all about lying to yourself, however. It is about recognizing how seemingly impossible notions can be made true by a reframe and a redirecting of focus to what can also be true. You might say, logically, I am lying to myself to make myself feel better about this whole situation. Then you might say, illogically, I'm not lying at all. Both are true, and it is the recognition of this is also true that helps break our assumptions and see the option toward an illogic orientation. Last example. One can say, logically, this is unsound. And one can also then say, illogically, this can work miracles. When you see that both statements are true, then it is a matter of choosing between the man-made construct and norm of logic orientation or the infinite potential option of illogic orientation. Final notes. This workaround is not for everybody. It is specifically for the people who desire to actively participate in recreating their reality, who believe for a greater autonomy in conscious creativity. It is not for the conventional individual who is content with life as it is. Lastly, for contemplation, practice is necessary to the degree of one's individual measure of faith, or unnecessary to those who are miracle-oriented. That is it for this vlog, and I will see you in the next one. For this session, I wrote 131 words.